Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here and making through the post-lunch slump. I hope our upcoming discussion here is able to keep you awake and energized. By way of introduction, I'm Sanjana Sidhra from the Affordable Housing Institute. You've heard my colleagues Davina and Margot earlier in the day about telling you all about what AHI does, so I won't go into details about that. But it is our pleasure here to be part of the AUHF conference and share with all of you all that we've been doing with the Chrysalis Housing Impact Accelerator. I do want to start us off, before we really dive in, I do want to start off with a huge thank you to our partners, many of whom are in the room, including the Shelter Afrique team, Keshavjee and the CAF team, Sita Shah from FST, Glenn Jordan and Empower, and I'm sure there are many more who I'm not seeing in the room, but all of these people have really helped to make this germ of an idea that was Chrysalis into a reality by sharing a common goal, which is to make housing in Africa truly impactful and scalable. This session here today is about exactly that, how we can strengthen emerging housing developers, the ones who are delivering homes on the ground, addressing the demand concentrated at the bottom of the pyramid, such that these developers who are joining us here on this panel today, such that they can attract the right blend of capital they need to grow their solutions. So let me start by giving you a quick overview of what the Chrysalis program is, and then we'll follow that up with an introduction of the panel, as well as a discussion with them. All right, so what is this Chrysalis program that I'm sure some of you have already heard of? To put it in a nutshell, it is our way of supporting next generation of investable housing enterprises. The accelerator training itself is a 20-week program designed specifically for emerging housing developers who are already delivering homes in their communities but need the right tools, networks, and access to finance to successfully scale their solutions. In putting together this accelerator, we drew inspiration from tech accelerators that many of you are aware of. You must have heard of Y Combinator, but really applying the key lessons that work for them, such as the importance of individualized coaching, peer learning, and exposure to successful precedents. What makes Chrysalis unique is that it builds on over 2 decades of combined experience, of course, of Debra, who I think does not need an introduction in this room, and as well as the Affordable Housing Institute. Debra, who is the director of Chrysalis, has deep experience and expertise in housing finance and in financing innovative, mission-driven housing solutions. And AHI has experience in over 50 countries studying complex housing ecosystems and developing solutions to address the bottlenecks. With Chrysalis, we're trying to bridge 2 worlds. On one side, the small-scale innovators who are designing new, impactful housing solutions. And on the other side, the financiers who may be really eager to support them, but need credible pathways to do so. Ultimately, our goal at Chrysalis is to help these developers move from being just project-ready to capital-ready, enabling them not just to raise funds, but to scale impact and transform the housing landscape across Africa. So we launched our inaugural cohort just this past July, and it is currently still underway. We are joined by some of our cohort members here, who you can see are also mapped out here. Our participants include mainly developers this time from all over East Africa, which was our focus region for this first cohort. So we have representation from, of course, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia. All of these companies are delivering a diverse range of products. They're delivering homes for sale, for rent, as well as engaging in rent-to-own models. Their units start from as low as USD 1,000 in Malawi for a starter home to USD 27,000 for a 2-bedroom unit in Kenya. They're all tapping into underserved markets, so targeting households with monthly incomes ranging from USD 200 to about 3,800 USD. Their customer groups include urban professionals, teachers, civil servants, nurses, and more. What is particularly interesting about this group of developers is that many of them are what we call asset rich but liquidity poor, which means they all already hold land, have completed projects, and have proven demand in each of their markets, but need the right tools, strategies, and financial instruments to really convert these assets into investable value. And that's exactly where Chrysalis comes in. So what do we actually do at Chrysalis? What are these guys learning? So over the course of 20 weeks, the program takes them through a structured journey, starting from organizational strengthening and looking at governance frameworks to mastering the financial and operational tools they need to attract capital. I think everyone in this room is aware of the very real challenges small to mid-sized developers face in sub-Saharan Africa and Africa in general, which includes high interest rates, limited mortgage uptake, and of course, uncertain offtake to exit from the deal. These are often the biggest barriers to them becoming investable from a financier's perspective. We have designed Chrysalis to help unlock this investability by addressing these issues directly, especially the offtake bottleneck, by working on homegrown solutions that may already be happening in the markets that these companies are operating in. For example, we're already seeing some creative solutions come out from the cohort, starting with Casa Real in Mozambique, and if Glenn is in the room, they've worked with Empower to pilot the use of blockchain to facilitate affordable home financing. We are working with Zima Homes and Rozana Properties, both who are Kenyan companies represented on this panel, in developing an investor offtake model that attracts domestic buyers to pre-purchase units as an investment, which these guys can then manage and rent out as rental units. And then with Thrive and Small Farm Cities, both in Zambia and Malawi respectively, we're pursuing strategies of employer-linked offtake pathways with mining companies and industrial employers in their markets. And finally, towards the end of the program, we close out with presenting each of their stories and really making a concrete ask to relevant investors. And these don't necessarily include just financial institutes. These may also include partners such as these big companies that they can either co-develop or guarantee offtake with. All of this is delivered through a mix of methods. Of course, we do this via virtual training, but also one-on-one coaching from industry experts. We have Irfan, who's joined us on the panel, who is one of the coaches for Chrysalis. We also do this via peer learning. So we have 3 in-person engagements over the 20 weeks, where these folks interact and kind of solve and share challenges that they have all been facing. And also learning from other innovators who have successfully scaled, as well as engagement with investors such as AFD, Proparco, TDB, IFC, banks in the region, and private equity firms. So while we've started this in East Africa, our vision really is to take this to multiple regions throughout the world. We do want to engage with all stakeholders. Right now it is very developer focused, but we do want to engage with all stakeholders along the value chain. So not just supply side, but also demand side. So looking at financial institutions, regulators, and all sorts. The idea is to move this sort of the program to different regions of the world and address the specific challenges that exist in those specific regions. So with that, I do want to move on to our panel discussion. And I would introduce first our cohort. We're joined by 4 of our cohort members today. So starting off with Muchiri, who is the founder and MD of Rozana Properties in Kenya. Rozana develops quality affordable homes in up-and-coming neighborhoods on the outskirts of Nairobi, focusing on housing for young urbanites. This approach reduces development costs, enabling more accessible price points for home buyers. Their properties are located in areas with strong public transportation, ensuring residents enjoy urban connectivity without the premium of inner city living. We're also joined by Bryan, McCoy, founder and CEO of Strive Residential in Zambia. I know we're going to have the AUHF next year in Zambia, so you guys might want to connect with Bryan here. Thrive Residential delivers high-quality, affordable rental housing for Zambia's emerging middle class. This includes studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, near key employment centers. With a fully integrated value chain, including in-house land acquisition, design, construction, and management, Thrive provides efficient, sustainable homes powered by reliable systems with solar hybrids. We also have Etta Madete, who is the founder and MD of Shout Group or Zima Homes. I believe a lot of you have already visited her projects, so you have a sense of what they're doing already. But Shout or Zima Homes is an affordable housing developer in Kenya, committed to delivering sustainable, cost-effective, and inclusive urban housing. Established with the mission to bridge the gap between housing demand and financial accessibility for Nairobi's working-class families, Zima focuses on young professionals, small families, and mid-sized households. Zima is leveraging modular prefabrication, recycled materials, and energy-efficient design, and is a leader in green, affordable housing in Kenya. We also have Niels van der Berge, who's the COO of Easy Housing. Easy Housing is a circular, bio-based, and climate-resilient building technology company headquartered in Uganda, but also registered in Kenya, with projects across Ghana, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Kenya. It provides affordable and sustainable housing by replacing carbon-intensive materials with FSC-certified timber and recycled plastics, incorporating passive design for energy efficiency. The company emphasizes local, sustainable sourcing and job creation. We also have with us Irfan Keshavjee. He's not a member of the cohort, but is a coach to the cohort and is also founder of Karibu Homes in Kenya. Irfan has over 27 years of experience as a CEO, entrepreneur, business advisor, and leadership coach in East Africa. He's a founder of award-winning impact enterprise, Karibu Homes, which has built and sold over 500 affordable homes in Kenya, specifically to lower-income families. Irfan is a seasoned affordable housing advisor and consultant. He has spent decades in the entrepreneurial trenches, navigating complex and disruptive challenges, both business and personal, and is passionate about coaching founders and early-stage companies to build robust and resilient organizations. And lastly, but definitely not the least, we also have Debra, who will be moderating the panel. Debra is, again, the director of the Chrysalis program. Debra has served for 21 years as the MD of Real Estate Project Finance for the US DFC, formerly OPIC. She and her team have closed more than $3 billion in debt financing in 29 countries around the world, including capital market transactions, construction project finance, mortgage facilities, and lease purchase facilities. With that introduction, over to you, Debbie, to kick off the discussion.
Thank you, Sanjana. I want to say, we use the term students, but really, the folks on this panel aren't students per se. We're all students of each other. This has been, the way Chrysalis is designed is to be a circular information sharing and advisory consultancy. So what we found here is that we're bringing experts that we know to the table in our network. We're bringing our network to the companies, but the companies are creating their own network among themselves and obviously taking away the members of the network that we present to them that are going to be most relevant to their businesses. So I just want to say thank you all, and for those in absentia, that this has been a real co-creation process. We've learned a lot, and it's going to affect subsequent cohorts, but we're really working together to try to solve these big issues in the housing sector. So what I'd like to do here, one of the issues that drove me to think about the whole accelerator concept is that companies would come to me at DFC with a project. They would come to me with a deal and say, okay, I want to finance 500 homes or 10,000 homes, whatever the number is. And they would have a nice presentation of that, and they would have mock-ups of the units and maybe a site plan or something. But when it came to talking about who's doing this work, what about your company? You know, what about your governance? What about your balance sheet? What about the capacity of your entity to deliver this project the way you're presenting it to me? And there was usually a lot less to be said in that space. So what we're going to do on this panel is talk about this idea of platform investments in capital versus project investments in capital. And the first thing, what I'd like to do here is we'll start on Irfan's end and work our way this way. Can you talk about what your experience has been so far in raising different types of capital, utilizing different types of capital to balance those two objectives, platform and project?
Okay, thanks, Debbie. So Karibu Homes to date has built and sold 570 homes, specifically for low-income families, majority women. We have raised to date $15 million, but it was a long and difficult journey. Because we had an impact motive, we first went out to impact investors and DFIs looking for concessionary capital. After 18 months and knocking at 85 doors, we ended up with no concessionary capital. We ended up getting the first $1 million from a family office in the UK, the second $1 million from a private developer in India, both of these at commercial IRRs. We used this to buy the land, and then once the project was slightly de-risked, we finally got an impact investor from the USA to put in $1 million to mobilize construction. Then we raised $7 million from a local DFI. This $7 million, we got it in shillings, came in at 16% interest, but by the end of the project, that interest rate had gone up to 22%. Meanwhile, commercial debt from regular banks, or regulated banks in Kenya, were capped at 13%. So in hindsight, we made a bit of a mistake there. And we ended up eventually raising another $4 million from the USA, impact investor, and local investors to refinance the DFI debt to something more reasonable. And with that, so finally we built and sold the 600 homes. And the second part is we raised $1 million in offtake finance. We had a group of Kenyan investors, private sector business people, who they were not happy with the T-bill, the risk-free rate, T-bill rate in Kenya in 2018, which was about 8% there. And they were looking for higher returns. So we spent 18 months developing a structure for a rent-to-own scheme, and they would put in the $1 million, and that would rotate. The idea was they'd put in the $1 million, season cash flows, and issue a bond. And the investors in that bond would then recycle the funds through. So we signed this agreement. It took 1.5 years to structure it and model and everything. But then soon after we signed the deal, the Kenyan government issued an infrastructure bond at 14%. And that investor says, why would I bother at 10 or 12% when I get a risk-free rate? So that's kind of the whole ecosystem in which we were raising funds. But either way, we did build and sell everything. Thanks.
That was very good. Under 3 minutes. Niels?
Yeah, thank you, Debra. So at Easy Housing, we have built 69 homes now in 5 different African countries, but mainly in Uganda and Kenya. And we have raised up to 1.5 million now, and all of that concessionary, actually. So it's a combination of grant funding, prize money, and some social loans. The highest interest rate we're paying is 4%, so very concessionary, I would say. And so that proves it can be done, right? And I know Gaia is also in the room of Earth Enable. She's done even better. I think she raised over, correct me if I'm wrong, but over 30 million in concessionary funding for Earth Enable. So I've been listening with great interest to the story that Joan presented to us yesterday from Convergence. I think she's very, very right that official development assistance, ODA in short, is drying up. But it doesn't mean there's no concessionary funding out there, right? There's a lot of green climate funding, for example. I believe Gaia tapped into a lot of health funding, which came available, partly leveraged by the COVID crisis, I guess, right? And that's also something Joan said, right? Maybe we have to frame what we do differently sometimes. Because to be frank, so we raised 1.5 million concessionary, but none of that came in on the box of housing, right? It's all circular economy, climate resilience, gender equity in the construction value chain. It's all different boxes. It's not the housing box. But having said that, if we talk about blended finance and we want to bring in that concessionary funding to use it as a lever for debt and equity funding, I think it can be done. There is actually a lot of funding out there, and it's even growing, right? The UN Climate Fund has similar challenges as many TFIs. They don't get their pipelines filled, so they have a lot of money to spend, and it's only piling up, and they don't have enough investable projects. So I think it can be done, but it requires some rethinking, some rebranding of what we do, perhaps, without cheating, because that sometimes sounds a bit like it's not fair, but I think it's very fair, because if we're talking about climate resilience, improving people's homes is, I think, the thing that must be done. Affordable housing, according to UN Habitat, it addresses 16 out of the 17 SDGs, so this is not cheating, this is just being more bold, more explicit about what we do and what our impact is, and then I think it can be done.
One quick question or follow-up to that, since we have 45 seconds. What kind of special capacity do you need to apply for grant funding? Do you have to have some special skill set or hire people to help you write the applications?
Yeah, probably. I think you need, it's another lingo than in the equity and debt funding, right? So you need to know that lingo. So I myself, I have a history in the development and humanitarian sector. I guess that helps. But yeah, of course, you can hire those people as well. So I think that capacity is out there, but it's a different... You also need a lot of patience, right? It comes... So when people say grant funding is free money, don't believe it. It's not free money. It comes with a lot of reporting. It's often attached to objectives. So I'm not saying it's always easy money. So you need to know what you're signing up to. And I actually know stories also on the African continent of companies that, you know, went down the drain because they signed up to the wrong objectives that actually didn't meet their business. So be careful, be cautious. It's not free, and there's strings attached to it. But yeah, regarding the skills, I think you need to know the lingo and need to know, but that's for everything, right? That's also to get DFI funding.
Please.
Okay, yeah, for me, I'd say I'd have limited experience as far as capital raising is concerned. We are on our third project, and our total project value, I think it's approximately about $7 million. And it's, the experience I have is more of lack of capital, where now it's a lot of bootstrapping, blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of tears, especially when the project stalls, because the other way we raise money is through off-plan sales. So you're moving at the velocity of the sales, which is rather unpredictable. So there's a lot of tears and slowing down of the project and cost overruns sometimes. So that's more of the experience I've had. So it's been rather refreshing being part of Chrysalis and just getting exposed to the many different kinds of capital raise that are out there and what investors are looking for, particularly the need to strengthen the platform, the issue of governance, sustainability, impact, and that's where now Rozana Properties is focusing on, because we want to scale and we recognize that it will be really critical to build our platform, and that's what we are strengthening. We are focusing on strengthening our platform.
I think that this point has been made a few times in that for some reason we just, housing is not ticking the boxes for investors, for impact investors. I think they just see it as scary, risky, scary housing. We don't feel that way because we live it. But the idea of developing adjacent arguments, the climate argument, the access to financing, the gender equality, sustainability, resilience, all of those agenda items in the impact world are served through housing. So I think the more that we're able to tell stories that demonstrate that, the more likely it is that we'll be able to attract some of that money. Okay. Bryan.
Hi, good afternoon. I founded Thrive about 2.5 years ago in Zambia, and and we're now on our third project, have raised, call it $1.5 to $2 million, and deployed actually we've deployed all of that. We're working on that at the moment. And all of that so far has been from high net worths. You could think of that as friends and family. Were there not another source of capital for Thrive to have gotten started, there would not have been anywhere to go. So we have relied entirely upon that single pathway up to here. Looking forward, operating in Zambia with a challenging macroeconomic environment and very high interest rates, as we look to scale our model of build-to-rent urban infill, so pretty basic buildings like you see in any neighborhood in any African capital, high net worths aren't going to provide all the capital to continue doing that. So as we look forward, we look at local debt, we look at hard currency debt. Neither of those is very exciting. Borrowing at 25% plus in local currency is a tough one. Taking the FX risk of borrowing in dollars is a tough one. And so while we'll consider those options, I promise, Paul, what I'm the most excited about looking forward is equity, and in particular, attracting local equity within Zambia. So that's just a bit of my thinking at this point in the journey of the company. One other thing that I'll share before I hand the mic on to Etta is that I'm pretty new in the housing game. Until 2022, well, the first 20 years of my career were either a generalist, an investor on the private equity side in the States, or in the agriculture space. And from 2012 to 2022, I was building a fish farming business in Zambia as a generalist. For that business, we attracted 4 different DFIs, 2 impact investors, and 1 development bank. And frankly, they were keen. And it is interesting to me that somehow stacking up blocks in the center of growing cities with supply-demand imbalances seems to have a much higher risk profile to DFIs and other investors than hiding fish underwater, feeding them, and hoping that 6 months later you're going to be able to find those fish and scoop them out and sell them to people. To me, the risk profile is so wildly different. It is so much less risky than the work that I was doing in agriculture. And yet, just speaking specifically with regard to DFIs, it is remarkably difficult for me to imagine as an organization that is not as far along as an Acorn or an IHS and is not a candidate for heavily subsidized capital. It's not clear where that middle path is.
Thank you, Bryan. Etta?
I like how you cued me because I'm here to tell you about what happens in terms of risks. I'm really glad that people got to visit my site on Tuesday. Who was there? Yay, which is great. So Debbie will have to time me because all of you know I can talk. But we are now 85% sold on that first phase, 80% paid down, 98% Kenyan owners, about 75% female, and 40% owner-occupiers. And that's just like the good side. To get there, it was a long journey of blended finance and blended delivery. We raised capital from Real, about $1 million in 2018. So if anyone remembers, we started raising capital in 2018, about $1 million, and about 0.3, about 300K in grants to basically cover the sort of R&D and the scale and the platform costs. We had an opco, which was who raised equity. So we had a beautiful balance sheet. Everything was looking really rosy. We almost had bulk offtake from IHS. And so everything was looking like really simple to deliver. Then all the risks that people are afraid of happened. COVID happened. The debt financier sort of had to change how much money they could give because their funders changed. The equity partner also changed their platform and wanted to leave the country. And so all that capital stack basically fell apart. And what I can say is that the thing that helped us get through is what you saw, which is that if you lead with product and you lead with a product that the market will buy, and make sure that you deliver the quality product, you should be able to manage a lot of the risks. So that's one thing. You can have the best diversified blended finance story, and the beauty is that even the product was designed to manage risks through scalable or phased delivery. So it was the design of the product that the market liked, and you've all been there. But because of all these changes in the program, we said, okay, we have designed it such that even if we can't build it all at once because the debt is not coming in at the right time, we can build it block by block and make sure that the project can actually survive. So you design the product to manage the risk, but also to ensure that you still deliver good quality to the market. But most importantly, we are delivering a scalable product. It's meant to be a courtyard model that can be replicated on half an acre. The second thing I think that we learned from this blended finance journey is diversify your capital stack sources, not what is in your capital stack. Like you can get 3 funders and you can get excited. No, you need to make sure that you have enough pools of capital and sources of capital that can carry you through these risks. And these risks are not just construction or market risk. They're also the fact that there's macroeconomic risk that can delay the project or stall the project. There's offtake risk. There's also situational risk, geographic risk. So diversify your pools of capital. Even if you have a term sheet, right now we're raising about $5 million to scale, and you basically have to say, even if one person can give the $5 million, say thank you, please do 1%, so that you make sure that you're de-risking your entire capital stack. The last one, almost. The last one is that one lesson we learned is that if you raise concessional capital, which is great, it's concessional and maybe it's catalytic, you have to make sure that you're clear on what those concessions are, because when things go interesting in the development, you want to make sure that you have the contracts in place to negotiate your position if you need to manage currency risks or hard currency risk or FX risk or COVID risk. And you want to make sure that you have your debt is acting like debt, your equity is acting like equity, or you have convertible notes to the middle. So concessional is not friendly. Concessional is not free. Thank you.
Thanks, Etta. Okay, that's a minute shaved off to your next answer.
I accept the punishment.
There's always one person on the panel who talks, just can't stop talking. But we love her anyway. So let's look to the future with what you've been thinking about with Chrysalis, for example, and where you are today. And the whole agenda here is to scale, to get bigger. Massive, small, probably that's the approach we're talking about here. And you want to get bigger to be sustainable as an enterprise, big enough to be sustainable as an enterprise. So can you each comment, we'll start with Irfan again, what do you think is needed? And I think just look at it from your company's perspective. Let's not talk big picture, just talk about your company. What do you think you need to get to that next scale of sustainable financial sustainability?
Thanks. I think the one thing that would have helped us a lot would be to bucket our finance into different compartments. One would be land, construction, and offtake. When you blend everything, the risks are different, the oversight is different. But also, as smaller developers, we don't have ticket sizes that are appealing to the large funders. So what I feel would be useful going forward, is if smaller developers were to bucket their capital asks, and there was an aggregator to aggregate these asks, and that would make the ticket size more appealing to a large funder. I think that would be the key answer for me, because, for example, at Karibu Homes, if I had an offtake guarantee, if somebody said, I will guarantee at least even 50% of your offtake, immediately that would pull in the equity because it's de-risked, it would pull in the debt because the bank would say, fine, much less risk there, and the whole project gets pulled through just by view of having offtake guarantee, not of the whole amount, but even a portion.
So I get his minute back. Negotiate.
Donating your minute to...
I'm kidding.
No, but I can be brief this time, I think, because I wanted to make a similar point as Irfan, but let me just shed my light on it from our perspective. I indeed think that aggregation is crucial, because if you listen to all of us, we've all been great, I think, in raising capital in our own ways, equity, concessionary, etc. So blended finance is here, as you see it. We are blended finance. But I think all of us, we're all talking in single-digit millions, right? So we're all too small to attract capital from DFIs or other large institutions. So I see this great, well, not great, I see this massive mismatch. On the one hand, all the capital that's out there and that's seeking pipeline projects and that's seeking to be invested in bankable projects, and at the same time innovators, disruptors like ourselves, all in our own ways, where it comes to sustainability, where it comes to affordability, really tapping into markets that are not being served by formal mainstream players yet, but we're all too small to tap into your capital. So somehow we have to bridge this gap, right? Somehow there has to be, I don't know, a facility or otherwise aggregate or a Chrysalis consortium. I don't know how we name it. I'm platform agnostic in a way, as long as I can be involved in the co-creation of it. But I think that's what needs to happen to bridge the gap, because otherwise, you know, I've been asked to be a bit bold today, otherwise we keep talking in conferences like this, right? And I think we're all here with great intentions, but we all want to walk out here with a kind of run list, right? With concrete things that we can do. And for me, it would be this. Let us try to build an aggregator. Let us try to co-create it. I'm platform agnostic, but it needs to happen to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I'd echo what Niels is saying, because I've been amazed even walking this Chrysalis journey, you know, just meeting so many financiers who are saying they have so much capital to deploy, and there are so many developers who are hungry for that capital. But somehow, you know, that there are all these obstacles, from the ticket sizes, the processes, and even looking at this room, you know, I'm a member, I sit on the board of the Property Developers Association, KPDA, and we are not well represented here. Like, there are so many financiers, I suppose, here, but not as many developers. So that partnership needs to be there. There needs to be capacity building, and this Chrysalis initiative is a great one. We need to build the capacity of developers so that they have bankable platforms. And at the same time, I would urge also the financiers, you know, to just see how they can accommodate the smaller developers, to bring them up to scale, because I think I've seen even from previous presentations, that's where the key lies in terms of unlocking this capacity to deliver the affordable housing sustainably. You need to really empower the smaller developers to scale through, for instance, financing, like their platform development, strengthening, and the ticket sizes and all these other things that my predecessors have mentioned. And when we meet in the middle, I believe magic will happen. Many more developers will be able to scale and sustainably, and they'll have met even the requirements for the financiers. They'll be bankable. So that done, I think we can go places.
So for Thrive to Scale, the organization has a lot of capacity building left in front of it. But I embrace that, and for now we're here to talk about financing, and so I can redirect this onto other people. From a financing perspective, I would love to see more of a focus on project level financing, on, call it, medium-sized projects. So not a $10,000 project, but projects that are maybe in the range of $250,000 to $5 million. The kind of projects that, if financed, could enable earlier stage developers like all of us on stage to make much more rapid progress towards achieving the scale of the larger success stories in the room. Again, back to the Acorns and IHSs as the examples here. I'd love to see investors in this space considering more and more equity rather than debt. Again, part of this is, if there are so many challenges to getting comfortable with the deals, I'm wondering if people aren't going to have an easier time getting there on the equity side than the debt side, again, given the macroeconomic situation of all the countries that we're operating in. And if I look at any of the projects that any of us are doing on stage, yeah, I just don't think any of them are going to lose money. And it's interesting to me that of all of the non-pure play private sector actors, of all the actors that are concessional in one way or another, that no one is able to get comfortable with projects that all in all are pretty safe. That also makes me wonder, do we need to drop some of the requirements that we've got here? I applaud the other people for achieving what they have on the environmental side, on the gender side, but should it really be that hard to make an investment in, or to justify an investment to an investment committee in the types of projects that we're developing? To me, it doesn't quite check out. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
I like your optimism, and I believe, yes, they don't all lose money, but they take a long time. So, money costs time. So,
investors left.
Well, no, they came back. So I think, and I've said this before this year, definitely, so I think I've done too many conferences, and I want all of you to repeat it. If you build it, they will come, but they will come slowly. Who was at EAPI? Let's say it. If you build it, they will come. But they will come slowly. So again, we talked about Zima's success as a product, but we've actually sold about $2 million of capital that run through our accounts from purchases, who have 80% paid for their assets. So off-plan sales, though it is a market failure solution, which is everyone avoiding the banks, is actually providing liquidity to developers to build. And so I am under a lot of pressure to basically either become a bank or start a SACCO, because basically developers who offer 10-year mortgages, 10-year payment plans are end-user financiers, but it slows us down because we cannot guarantee our offtake. So Zima is under pressure to basically become a financier of the end users. You see Unity Homes, you see Savo offering 0 deposit, 10-year payment plans because they have cash flows from their sales. So there's evidence that the buyers, there's effective demand, but the developers are taking on that extra layer of risk. And so the way that we can really scale, and I'm asking the people here on the demand side, is you need to find products that can bridge that gap. That is off-plan mortgages, that is guarantee funds, that is securitization of the cash flows, collateralizing our off-plan sales, and using that as security. We need to find a way to bridge that gap, because the more developers become end-user finance providers, which is what they're doing, we're vertically integrated, the less institutional our market will get. So I'll say it again. If you build it, they'll come, but they'll come. So help us make it move faster.
Make it faster, right.
Thank you.
Right, great, thank you. Okay, guys, very good job. Yeah, so, one thing we talk about massive, small. So what I would say, small and sophisticated. There's no reason why smaller developers or medium-sized developers can't be just as sophisticated as bigger developers. And that's what we're looking to build here, is a global network of sophisticated small and medium-sized developers that are focused on our long-term resilience and sustainability goals. So if you'd like to talk more about Chrysalis, we have another, like Sanjana said, we've got another cohort coming up next year. But if you in your particular country think this might be useful, I know AHI would be happy to talk with you. So please just give us a ping. Thank you for your attention.